eyes be like, oh.
Welcome to CAIE Core. To download this lecture notes, check out the description for link. And if you're willing to join the free classes, please contact the email shown on the page. So let's get started with our chapter, Plant Nutrition. Okay, in this chapter, we are going to learn how plants feed themselves. Okay, because plants are such type of organism that make their own food, they do not rely on other organisms for their food like we do, right? We rely on plants and animals for our food, but plants, they make their own food. So first of all, the process by which they make their own food is called photosynthesis. Okay, and now this is the definition of photosynthesis, which you have to memorize. Okay, it's very important from the examiner's point of view. So what does it say? Photosynthesis is the process by which plants synthesize carbohydrates from raw materials using energy from light. Okay, so what this definition is saying that plants basically synthesize means they make. Okay, so plants basically make carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is their food. Okay, like glucose, sucrose, starch, these are all carbohydrates. Okay, and plants make these carbohydrates from raw materials. Okay, raw materials are what is needed to make, okay, like the reactants. All right, so plants synthesize carbohydrates from raw materials using energy from light. Okay, without light, plants would not be able to do this. So the energy they get this from is from light. All right, I hope this definition is clear. Any doubts, send in the chat. Once again, I'll repeat. It is the process by which plants synthesize carbohydrates from raw materials using energy from light. All right, pretty straightforward. Now moving on next, we have the word equation for photosynthesis. That is, what do plants use and what are the products formed? If you have studied respiration, you will notice that this is exactly the opposite. Plants basically take in carbon dioxide and water to give out glucose, which is the carbohydrate mentioned above, that they synthesize carbohydrates, right? That is, they make carbohydrates, and that carbohydrate is glucose over here. All right, so carbon dioxide along with water gives you glucose and oxygen, but there are two conditions for this. The two conditions are that you need light and chlorophyll. Okay, sometimes what they do is that they mention light and chlorophyll on this arrow. Okay, light over here and chlorophyll at the bottom. This is another way you can show your proper word equation if it's asked, so that you have no chance of losing your marks. All right, so this is another way in which you can write it. So plants, basically, the word equation for photosynthesis is that they take in carbon dioxide and water to give out glucose and oxygen. Okay, memorize it with me. They take in carbon dioxide and water to give out glucose and oxygen. The two conditions that are required are light and chlorophyll. Now, what is this chlorophyll? I've been saying chlorophyll, chlorophyll, chlorophyll. What is this chlorophyll? Basically, this chlorophyll is a green pigment, okay, that is found in the chloroplast. If you have studied the cells chapter, you will know what chloroplast is. Okay, the chloroplast is present in every plant that makes its own food, that helps it makes its own food. All right, so this chlorophyll is present in the chloroplast, and it's the green pigment which gives a green color to the plant. All right, the green color which you see in the leaf, it's because of this chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is the green pigment that is found in chloroplast, and chlorophyll transfers energy from light into energy in chemicals. Okay, it transfers energy from light into energy in chemicals. All right, so chlorophyll is the green pigment that is found in chloroplast. Then you need to learn what is the job of chlorophyll. They will ask you, what does chlorophyll do? How does it help in photosynthesis? Then you have to write that chlorophyll transfers energy from the light into energy in chemicals. Okay, so it basically converts the light energy into chemical energy. And this is used for the synthesis, that is the making of carbohydrate, which is glucose. Okay, I hope it's all clear. The chat box is still open. Any doubts, let me know. If it's clear, give me a thumbs up. All right, so now let's continue. Okay, this was all about chlorophyll. Remember, what is chlorophyll? Once again, it's the green pigment found in chloroplast. Chlorophyll transfers energy from light into the energy in chemicals for the synthesis of carbohydrates. Now we have the symbol equation for photosynthesis. We saw the word equation before. That was, it was written in words. Okay. Now let's take a look at the symbol equation. Symbol equation is the same thing, but given in, like, if you've studied chemistry, you will know what is the difference between word and symbol equation. Words is just like given in words, and symbol, they use the symbol of the element of that compound, all right? And that's how you get it. Is chlorophyll and chloroplast the same thing? No. Chlorophyll and chloroplast are not the same thing. Basically, chloroplast is present in your cell, okay? But inside this chloroplast, there is chlorophyll. Okay, so chlorophyll is present inside the chloroplast. All right, I hope that's clear. Okay, now let's move forward. Symbol equation for photosynthesis. So now this symbol equation, if you're an extended student, you need to memorize the symbol equation and the balancing. It's better that you learn the balancing because it's very commonly asked. So if you go in the exam hall and you try to balance it, it can waste more of your time. Okay, so it's basically, again, carbon dioxide reacting with 6 moles of water to form, this is the formula of glucose. It is C6H12O6. Okay, and along with that, we get the oxygen, right? You must have heard, go near the plant, okay, and stand because it gives you oxygen, and that oxygen we need for respiration. Okay, we'll study that later on. So let's take a look at the symbol equation again. 6 moles of carbon dioxide are reacting with 6 moles of water to form C6H12O6, which is glucose and oxygen. All right, so it's better that you learn that there's just 6 before carbon dioxide, water, and oxygen. Then it's easy for you in the exam that you don't have to balance it. Okay, and luckily the number is just the same. Okay, 6, 6, and 6. All right, so this was all about photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? What are the reactants? What are the products? What is chlorophyll actually? And what is its job? Make sure you learn this chlorophyll part and the photosynthesis. In fact, every word mentioned in this notes is very important. And these notes will be shared on the group. Now let's move on further. What is the use of this carbohydrate that the plant is making? Okay, it's making glucose, it's struggling so much, taking in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, taking in water from the roots. Okay, also remember, this carbon dioxide comes from the atmosphere. All right, we are 24/7 breathing out carbon dioxide. So plants get the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and water it gets from its root. That's why we water the plants. All right. So now let's move on further. So as I said, what is the use of this carbohydrate that the plant is making? It's giving out, using carbon dioxide, water, and giving out glucose. What is the use of this? Very important. You have to memorize all these 5 uses and also understand it well, because it's a very pretty straightforward question. They will give you this for 5 marks. What is the use of carbohydrate that the plant is making? All right, so we'll also discuss past paper questions in the next class, but for now, make sure you are following what I'm saying. Learn all these 5 uses and understand them well. Okay, bio requires your memorization skills also, so make sure you're good with that and a little of understanding as well. So now let's take a look at the use of carbohydrates. Starch. First of all, what plants do is that they convert this glucose, okay, this glucose to starch. Okay, they convert this glucose to starch and they store it in the form of starch. Okay, they store it for their future use in the form of starch. Why is that so? Why don't they store it in the form of glucose itself? The reason is that starch is insoluble and it does not take part in the reactions. Okay, whereas glucose is highly reactive, and if plants store the carbohydrate in the form of glucose, then it can react and take part in other reactions and the plant system can mess up. All right, so plants store this glucose in the form of starch. Why? Because starch is insoluble. All right, I hope that is clear. Okay, so now let's take a look. What is the use of starch? And what is the use of carbohydrate? That is the glucose that the plants make. Okay, the use of carbohydrate, that is the glucose which the plant makes in photosynthesis. So first of all, it is stored as starch. Okay, in the plants, starch is used as an energy store in the plants. Memorize this with me, that glucose is stored as starch and starch is an energy store for plants. Okay, in case the plant is not getting carbon dioxide and water in full amount, it will use its stored energy. Next, what is the second use of the carbohydrate of photosynthesis? That is cellulose to build cell walls. Okay, if you have studied the cells chapter, you will know that the cell walls in plants are made up of cellulose. And this cellulose is indirectly made from glucose. Okay, everything is connected. All right. So cell wall is made up of cellulose, and this cellulose is made from glucose. So indirectly, this glucose is the main cause, and the second reason to make carbohydrate is that cellulose is needed to build cell wall. Any doubt? Send in the chat. Okay. Now next, let's move forward. If you want, you can also take down notes, okay, while I'm explaining, so it's easier for you to recall. Now the third use of carbohydrate is that this glucose that is made is used in respiration to provide energy. If you have studied the 7 life processes in the first chapter, you will know that respiration is one of the 7 life processes that an organism needs to carry out if it is living. Okay, so plants also carry out respiration as well as photosynthesis. Okay, but photosynthesis takes place only if there is light, that is in the morning time, and respiration is taking place 24/7. Now let's move forward. Sucrose for transport in the phloem. So sucrose for transport in the phloem. Now the fourth use of carbohydrate is that the plants convert the glucose that they make to sucrose for transport in the phloem. Now the problem in the plant is that, see, there are many leaves in the plant. All right, there's not just one leaf, there are many leaves in the plant, and there's also a flower. And the thing is that all of these plants of the all of these, don't judge my drawing, okay, all of these parts of the plant, they need this carbohydrate that is glucose. Okay, they all need it to carry out the process that is called respiration, which we will study on later. Okay, so they all need this carbohydrate for respiration. Now the problem is that how are they going to transfer this carbohydrate that is glucose to all parts of the plant? You will learn later on in the transport in plants chapter that phloem does this job. Okay, but for now, just remember that sucrose is used for the transport in the phloem. That is, phloem transfers this carbohydrate in the form of sucrose. Why not in the form of glucose? Because again, glucose is very highly reactive. It will react in the reactions as it is passing through, and it is very soluble. It might dissolve in anything, whereas sucrose is a better option. Okay, so sucrose is used for the transport in the phloem, which is another use of your carbohydrate. Okay, something in the chat. So glucose is made into starch and then to sucrose for transportation. Yes, but sucrose is made into starch as an energy store. When they have to store it, they convert the glucose to starch, but for transport, they convert the glucose to sucrose. Okay, I hope that's clear. So it's for different purposes. But yeah, you're right. Indirectly, the glucose is made into these two things. Okay, many glucose molecules join to form a starch. What is the difference between starch and sucrose? Starch is a bigger molecule than sucrose. Okay, sucrose is basically a smaller molecule. If you have studied biological molecules, that chapter, you will know that we call the glucose a monosaccharide. Okay, if I'm not wrong, and the starch is a polysaccharide. That is, starch is a bigger molecule. And in starch, the glucose is joined in a different way than it is joined in sucrose. All right, and starch is more insoluble than sucrose. All of these details are not that important for you though. Okay, so now let's move forward. Okay, so I hope you understood all these 4 uses that we have discussed till now. Okay, so the transport that takes place in the plant, okay, is sucrose. Sucrose is used for transport in the phloem. Okay, and phloem basically does the job of transportation. You will learn that later in transport in plants. Okay, now let's move forward. The 5th use is that this glucose, okay, is used to make nectar, which is used to attract insects for pollination. Okay, so you know, why will insects come? Why will insects come to the plant? When they get something, they need a reward. Okay, you have been studying this since childhood. Okay, so the insects come to the plant for their nectar. Okay, and this nectar, okay, this sweet sugary nectar is also made from glucose, that is the carbohydrate from photosynthesis. Okay, and insects come to have this glucose, and thus they also help in pollination. So the use of carbohydrate is that it is used to make nectar to attract insects for pollination. All right, I hope the uses of carbohydrates are clear. If any doubt, let me know, send it in the chat. Okay, now let's move forward. Till now, we have discussed what is photosynthesis and what is the use of photosynthesis. Now we will see that plant does not only need glucose, it also needs other ions For example, magnesium and nitrate ions, which are included in your syllabus. Okay, and these are the minerals that the plant gets from the roots. If you have studied active transport, you will know that these ions are absorbed by the root from the soil by active transport. Okay, so first of all, what we need to know is that these two minerals also plant means, that is magnesium and nitrate ions. And what is the use of this? So the use of magnesium ion is that it is used to make chlorophyll. Okay, and we know how important chlorophyll is. We saw that without chlorophyll, photosynthesis cannot take place. And if photosynthesis cannot take place, the plant cannot function and the plant will die. Okay, so magnesium ion is used to make chlorophyll, and if magnesium ion is not present, the deficiency that will be caused is that the leaves will turn yellow, because as we discussed, the chlorophyll is the one that gives the green color, green pigment color to the plant. Okay, and if this chlorophyll is not present, the leaves will turn yellow, especially between the veins. Okay, now if you, for example, now if someone asks you, hey, why is this leaf yellow? My leaf has turned yellow of this plant. You can immediately look and tell that the plant lacks magnesium ions. So the farmer needs to get a fertilizer that has a lot of magnesium ions. Now another ion is nitrate ion that the plant needs. Okay, now even nitrate ion is very important. The importance of nitrate ion is that it is used to make amino acids. And these amino acids are in turn used to build proteins. If you have studied biological molecules chapter, you will be aware of that. Okay, you will be aware that nitrate ions are used to make amino acids, which are in turn used to make proteins. And you know that protein is very useful because protein is used to make your enzymes, protein is used to make your antibodies, and protein has a lot of other uses. Okay, and if this nitrate ion is not present, the plant will not be able to grow. Okay, because you need protein to grow, like humans do, right? Even we need protein to grow. So now nitrate ions are also used to make amino acids. Then these amino acids are used to make proteins. Okay, and if this nitrate ion is not present, the plant will have a stunted, that is small plant growth. All right, so these two ions, you need to remember what is their use, what is the deficiency caused if they are not present. Okay, so use of magnesium ion is that it is used to make chlorophyll. Nitrate ion is used to make amino acid, which is in turn used to build proteins. And if magnesium ion is not present, the leaves will turn yellow. And if nitrate ions are not present, there will be stunted plant growth. All right. Now let's move further. Now let's take a look at, now we have completed all of this photosynthesis. What is the use of that? The two ions that the plant must have. Now we are going to take a closer look at what a leaf looks like. Okay. We are going to take a closer look at what are the parts of the leaf, what a leaf actually looks like, what is the job of each of the part. Okay, for today we don't have much to cover. Okay, because it was the first class, I did not include much. Okay, we'll just discuss the first two parts, and then tomorrow inshallah we will complete this chapter, plant nutrition, and we will try to do past papers. Then not tomorrow, day after tomorrow is our next class. Okay, on Tuesday, that's when we'll complete the entire chapter of plant nutrition, along with we'll try to do some past papers. And then in the next classes, we will do plant nutrition. Okay. Amir Hussain has a doubt. Could you send in the chat if it's possible? Okay. You raised your hand, all right. So if you have any doubts, send in the chat. All right. Now let's move further. Okay. So the leaf structure. So this was all about the leaf structure. Okay. We'll discuss each of them in detail now. First of all, what you need to remember is that leaves have a large surface area. Okay, there are two characteristics of the leaf which are very important from your examiner's point of view that you must remember. So the first one is that leaves have a large surface area. What does that mean? It means the leaves have a very large surface area at the top. Okay, and why is that so? The reason is that this large surface area will increase the rate at which carbon dioxide can diffuse into the leaf. Okay, carbon dioxide will be able to diffuse faster into your leaf if it has a large surface area. And the second use of this large surface area is that it allows large amount of sunlight to fall onto the leaf, and we know that sunlight and chlorophyll are very, very important factors for photosynthesis. Okay, so the two uses of a large surface area in the leaf that you must memorize and keep in your mind is that it increases the rate at which carbon dioxide can diffuse. And if you have studied the diffusion chapter, you will be knowing that one of the factors of diffusion that increases the rate of diffusion is a large surface area. All right, the factor that increases the rate of diffusion is a large surface area. No, we just have a little more left to do. Okay, the class is supposed to be 30 minutes more, but we'll try to finish it a little earlier for today. Okay, is it clear now? Is my voice fine now? Okay, I hope it's fine. All right. So leaves have a large surface area, and this increases the rate at which carbon dioxide can diffuse into the leaf, first use, and the second use is that it allows large amount of sunlight to fall onto the leaf. Okay, so it increases the rate at which carbon dioxide can diffuse into the leaf, and of course we need this carbon dioxide. Why do we need this carbon dioxide? For photosynthesis. Okay, for photosynthesis, and it also allows large amount of sunlight, and again we need this sunlight for photosynthesis. Now, second characteristic of a leaf is that it is very thin. Okay, if you have ever tried touching a leaf in real life, you will notice that it's very thin. Okay, and a little pull and it breaks apart. Okay, why is that so? Why is the leaf so thin? The reason is that it allows sunlight to pass through the leaf. Okay, this is F over here. It allows the sunlight to pass right through the leaf. Okay, and it is thin so that all parts of the leaf can get the sunlight. Okay, all parts of the leaf. I mean, just look at this diagram. Okay, it feels so weird that this is the entire leaf. Okay, but it's so thin and like just so beautiful how it has been created. All right, so the reason why it's so thin is that it allows the sunlight to pass through all the parts of these leaves. All right, this is why it's so thin. Okay, and now the other reason why it's so thin again is that it allows carbon dioxide to reach all the cells quite quickly by diffusion. Okay, when diffusion takes place quickly, carbon dioxide can reach all of the leaf cells. Okay, which is why it is so thin. All right, so make sure you know what are the two characteristics of a leaf, that is large surface area and they are very thin, and what is the use of each of them. For large surface area, it allows diffusion to take place faster and it allows large amount of sunlight to fall onto the leaf. And why are they thin? They are thin because it allows sunlight to pass right through all the parts of the leaf, and the second reason is that it helps carbon dioxide to reach all the cells very quickly. Okay, now there's something in the chat. Just give me a minute. Can you please explain part 1, that why they are thin? Okay, let me tell you. Basically, they are thin because this allows sunlight to pass right through the leaf, allowing many cells inside it to photosynthesize. See, if they are very thin, the sunlight can quickly pass through all the parts of the plant, of the leaf, right? If it is very, 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 very thick, it's going to take a lot of time for the sunlight to pass through each and every part of the leaf, each and every cell in the leaf. Okay, so because it is thin, it can pass through each and every cell in the leaf and allowing all the cells that have a chloroplast to photosynthesize quickly. Okay, because if it was thick, it would take a lot of time and maybe some cells would miss out the sunlight and they would not be able to photosynthesize. I hope that's clear. Okay, if you still have any doubts, you can let me know. Yes, okay, great. Now let's move forward at the functions of the structures in leaf. You're welcome. Okay, so first we will just take a look at 2 parts of the leaf today. Okay, actually we have 3, but let's see how much we can cover. Okay, because we still have 30 minutes of our class. So now, taking a look at the first part of the leaf, we have the upper epidermis. Okay, the upper epidermis. Let's go back to our diagram and see where this is. This is the upper epidermis. Okay, if you can see, this whole thing is the upper epidermis and it contains cells arranged horizontally in the leaf. And it's the top layer of the leaf. And above this, you can see this is the vacuole. Okay, it's very important that you have a basic understanding of the previous chapters. Okay, like the cells chapter when you come for our class. Okay, so this is the vacuole that you've studied in cell structures. This is the cytoplasm. This is the nucleus. Okay, and as you can see, the upper epidermis cells do not have a chloroplast. Okay, and there is a reason why they don't have a chloroplast. Okay, so let's go further and take a look at that. And you can see something new mentioned here, that is cuticle. What in the earth is this cuticle? So let's take a look at that. All right. So first of all, in the upper epidermis, the cells in this layer are tightly packed. Okay. The cells in this layer are tightly packed to reduce the quantity of water vapor escaping. Okay. As you know that if a leaf is exposed to sunlight, or if anything is exposed to sunlight, it has the tendency of the water to evaporate from the leaf surface. Okay, and we do not want our water to evaporate from the leaf, because as you will see further, that water is also needed for the leaf. All right, in the transport in plants chapter, we will look at all the uses of water which are very commonly asked. All right, so the cells in this layer are tightly packed because we don't want the water escaping from the leaf at the top layer. All right, I hope that's clear. So the first characteristic of upper epidermis is that the cells in this layer are very, very tightly packed. As you can go back in the diagram and see, they're very tightly packed. There's barely space between them, and the reason is that so that water cannot escape from the leaf surface. Okay, now the second over here is that the cells in the upper epidermis, they basically, okay, the cells in the upper epidermis, they basically do not contain chloroplast. Okay, the reason for that is not given here. Okay, the reason for that is not given here, but the main reason over here is that they want the sunlight to be reaching to lower cells which are actually meant for photosynthesis. All right, so this can be one of the reasons why these cells do not contain chloroplast. All right, so now let's take a look at the third characteristics of an upper epidermis. So the third characteristics of an upper epidermis is that the cells here, okay, the cells here secrete a waxy substance that forms the cuticle, which also prevents water loss from the top of the leaf. Okay, as we already saw before, the water vapor has a tendency of escaping when it is exposed. What is the key to get an A star in bio? The key to get an A star in bio is to concentrate in the class. And yes, we will be doing paid sessions. This week, it's a free course of the biology where we'll be covering plant nutrition and plant transport. We're starting a paid session. The details will be shared today, okay, in which we will cover the entire course. And inshallah, by the end of mid-September, you will be ready to get an A star in O-level biology. Okay, and the key to it is just keep working hard, okay, never give up. And we will be, these notes, okay, which we are creating, they're very helpful. Make sure you know each and every word mentioned in the notes. Whatever I'm saying in the class, memorize this, learn that, okay, make sure you do that. And also we will be going through an exam answer script of a student, okay, who scored an A star. Okay, yes, I did get an A star in bio. Yeah, and we will go through the answer script of that, okay, and inshallah it will be more clear for you all. Okay, will there be more free lessons of bio and chemistry? Yes, bio, there are just 4 classes for now, we have decided. But if we see a good response, we might continue. Okay, we will see. Chemistry, the free sessions are over. The recorded lectures will be sent soon in the group. And subscribe to our channel. Okay. Okay, the upper epidermis. The cells in this layer are tightly, yeah, we were in the third point, the third characteristic of the upper epidermis. Okay. So the cells over here, they basically secrete a waxy substance that forms the cuticle, which also prevents water loss from the top of the leaf. Okay, so basically what these cells do over here is that they secrete a waxy substance at the top of the leaf. Okay, maybe sometimes if you touch the leaf, you'll be able to feel that, okay, that this is a waxy substance, and the role of this cuticle, that is the waxy substance, is that it prevents the water loss from the leaf, okay, from the top of the leaf. Now, the fourth characteristics of the upper epidermis, okay, I hope you understood this. If you have any doubts, let me know. So the fourth characteristic of the upper epidermis is that this layer is very thin and it is transparent, okay? And the reason is that it allows more light to pass through. All right, so these are all the 4 characteristics of the upper epidermis. If you are asked for the upper epidermis, which they do usually ask, make sure you mention all of them. Okay, the most important is the last one though, which is almost usually mentioned in the mark schemes. That is, the layer is thin and it is transparent so that more light can pass through it. Okay, it's almost the same as what we discussed over here. Why do the leaves have a thin layer? So that more light can pass through it, allowing more cells to photosynthesize. Okay, now let's take a look at Palisade mesophyll cells. Let's go back and take a look at Palisade mesophyll. Okay, now just below the upper epidermis, we have Palisade mesophyll cells that are arranged vertically And if you see, they have lots and lots of chloroplasts. Just look at them. These green color, they are the chloroplasts. And there are so many chloroplasts. And the reason is that this Palisade mesophyll is actually the main site of photosynthesis in the leaves, which is why they contain lots and lots of chloroplasts, as you can see. Okay. So let's go further and take a look. First of all, these Palisade mesophyll cells, this layer, it is the main site of photosynthesis in the leaf. Okay, and over here the cells are very tall and narrow, as we saw. Okay, and the reason, it's very important that you know the reason for each of the property. Okay, I think over here it wasn't mentioned. I'll try to mention it in the notes. Okay, the reason for each property is also very important, because we will discuss later that the mark scheme contains some keywords. Like sometimes it says just describe it, then you don't need to elaborate much, but then it says sometimes describe and explain. That's when you need to elaborate each and every point of yours. Okay, so cells over here are tall and narrow. The reason is that so that they can maximize the light that is received by the cells. Okay, if they're tall and narrow, they can receive a lot of light, and maximum light can be received by the cells. All right, the third thing is that cells are tightly packed so that they can maximize the light received by the cells. Okay, so the third thing over here for the Palisade mesophyll cell is that they are very tightly packed so that they can once again receive maximum light by the cells. Now the third point over here is that cells contain lots of chloroplasts so they can trap light energy, right? The reason that they contain lots and lots of chloroplasts is that they can trap light energy and convert it into chemical energy, which can be needed to make glucose. Okay, now the next point, the next characteristic of a Palisade mesophyll cell is that they are positioned at the top of the leaf, just below the epidermis, once again, so that they can receive the maximum light energy by the cells. Okay, so the cells can receive the maximum light energy. All right, then the last characteristic is that there's a large vacuole in the Palisade mesophyll cell. Okay, as you can see, and this large vacuole ensures that chloroplasts on the sides of the leaf and can receive a lot of light and photosynthesize. Okay, we'll give a recap of this functions of structures in a leaf in the next class, but by that time make sure you go through it, okay, and make yourself a little thorough with it.
Push the fucking pack.